There are three likely outcomes from this election. The first, the status quo. The ANC could win an outright majority and it would maintain its 30-year hold on power. The second, and what many people think is the likely, the ANC narrowly loses its majority and thus has to make a power-sharing agreement with a smaller party, of which there are several. Finally, and arguably the least likely, a group of smaller parties form a ruling coalition without the ANC. And then you've got the personalities involved that could play into a coalition. The former President Jacob Zuma and his MK party. Songezo Zibi and his Rise Mzansi party is going after the youth vote. And there's always Julius Malema of the Marxist EFF, who's always involved in one way or t'other. The head of the largest official party, that's the DA, the Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen, told me last year how he's taking advantage of the ANC shortcomings.
We have been able to capitalize on it, particularly as people are starting to realize that this government doesn't have a plan to get out of the mess, and also how they look to DA governments who are climbing the ladder towards more energy security and being able to shield residents from the failures at a national level.
Daryl Glaser, professor at Wits University, is with me from Johannesburg. This is a rum business. We've no exit polls. People like me are groping in the dark, trying to work out what the result might be. What's the latest thinking?
Well, I think the latest thinking is basically where it has been for a while. We're still speculating. There appears to be a brisk turnout. We're trying to figure out what that means. And essentially, we're still in the situation where the opinion polls are predicting, all of them, that the ANC is going to fall short of an absolute majority. And this is going to take South Africa into new territory because we very likely are going to be experiencing our first coalition government at national level.
So who is the most likely partner for the ANC? Bearing in mind, it depends on how many seats they need and how many the other parties have got. But give me a thumbnail. Who's the most likely partner?
Well, this is part of the difficulty, that very few of the political parties are straightforward with the public about who they favour as potential coalition partners, because every party wants to present itself as a possible outright winner. But look, there are two basic possibilities. One is that the ANC forms a coalition with the parties of the populist left, which will have some interesting ramifications, potentially, for example, in terms of market reaction. The other possibility is a centrist coalition with parties like the Democratic Alliance. A lot will depend on how close it is to the 50% mark. I mean, if it's a couple of percent short of the 50% mark, it might even go in with a party like the Inkatha Freedom Party.
Right. So the DA, in a sense, does well, but never seems to do well enough, except out on the Western Cape. What would it take for the DA to come into this coalition?
Well, again, it's going to depend on what the overall arithmetic looks like. The DA's problem has always been that it's achieved a kind of a ceiling. It was very successful in vacuuming up the votes of a whole series of parties that were appealing to the white and Indian and mixed race colored minorities, but it's never been able to break into the black majority to any significant degree. And the tactics it uses to vacuum up the minority vote alienate the black majority vote. So it's probably at around a ceiling of 20% or so of the vote. And it would be a remarkable thing, say, to have an ANC-DA coalition. Right. It would counter to many people's expectations. In some ways, it would probably be a good coalition for the stability of the country, because these are two large parties and they could form a pretty pragmatic government.
Is the president toast? Is it just a matter of time that after this election there will have to be a new president? The price of coalition will be a new president.
I don't think that's absolutely certain. I mean, Cyril Ramaphosa is still personally quite popular in the country. He's disappointed a lot of people by appearing to be indecisive. He's also been involved in some minor corruption allegations. And he's been accused of placing party above country. People had high expectations of him, which he's dashed. But on the other hand, he probably still has more ability than a lot of other contenders to unite a wide grouping of. So I would say that it's still possible that we might still have a President Ramaphosa.
Good to see you, sir. Thank you, Professor. We'll talk more once we've got results and we'll get more analysis. Thank you.